Michael Jordan was not born knowing he would become the greatest basketball player of all time. There is no mythical birth of a legend moment embedded in his story, the kind people often paint in hindsight. He was born on February 17, 1963 in Brooklyn, but grew up in North Carolina. In a relatively ordinary, middle-class environment, his family was disciplined, hardworking, and strict. His father, James Jordan, was an authority figure who believed in hard work, responsibility, and order. His mother, Dolores, was a source of stability and calm force that kept Michael mentally grounded. Even here, one crucial trait begins to form. Jordan grows up in a world where praise is not automatic and respect must be earned. Nothing is given for free. As a child, Michael was not the tallest, not the strongest, and not even considered the most talented in the family. His older brother Larry was the better athlete, stronger, more naturally gifted, and this fact etched itself deeply into Michael's mind. Here, the first and extremely important engine of his personality is born, the need to prove himself, not to the world, not to fans, but to those closest to him. A sibling rivalry that fades for most children becomes, for Jordan, a lifelong mental setting. Never be second, never be worse, never be almost. The turning point comes in high school. Michael tries to make the school basketball team and is cut. The official reason is simple: he is supposedly too small. Not good enough. This moment later becomes legendary, often romanticized. But its real importance is not in the rejection itself. It lies in how Jordan responds. He doesn't collapse. He doesn't make excuses. He stores that feeling of humiliation precisely, deeply, and begins to use it as fuel. This is where the inner monologue that will follow him his entire life is born. Remember this. One day, you'll pay them back. Jordan improves not in leaps, but obsessively. He trains more than others, not because anyone forces him to, but because he hates the feeling of someone doubting his value. This hatred of doubt, both external and internal, becomes his primary psychological engine. When he finally breaks through and starts to be noticed, it isn't because he suddenly discovered his talent. It's because he had been working for a long time, while others were still relying on natural ability. He earns a place at the University of North Carolina, where his story shifts into another phase. He joins a team led by Dean Smith, a coach who emphasizes teamwork, discipline, and system over individual stardom. Here, Jordan's ego collides with collective thinking. Once again, he is not the center of the universe. Once again, everything does not revolve around him. And once again, he is forced to adapt. For most future stars, this would be a problem. For Jordan, it is another test, another source of inner tension that pushes him to grow. In 1980 comes the moment that writes his name into the national memory for the first time. The NCAA championship game, final seconds, the ball in his hands, the shot, the basket. Jordan hits the game winner, and suddenly he is seen as someone who can handle pressure. But what matters is that this is not luck or a moment of spontaneous inspiration. It is the outcome of his psychology, the ability to function when others freeze. Here, his key trait reveals itself for the first time. Pressure does not destroy him. Pressure activates him. Even then, Jordan is not a finished product. He is explosive, hyper-competitive to the point of aggression, emotionally extreme. He cannot accept losing. He cannot switch off. Every practice is personal. Every matchup is a measure of his own worth. This mentality makes him a monstrous competitor, but also a difficult person to be around. And this is something essential to understand at the very beginning of his story. Michael Jordan was not built for harmony. He was built for conflict, for friction, for constant battle with opponents, with teammates, and with himself. And he carries all of this with him when he leaves college and enters the NBA, not as a finished legend, but as a young man already rooted in one dangerous idea. If I don't win, I have failed. And that idea will become the foundation of his greatness, and of his darker side as well. Michael Jordan's entry into the NBA in 1984 does not outwardly feel like the beginning of something epic defining, not because he lacks talent, but because the league is already filled with strong personalities and established stars. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the symbol of the past. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird are actively shaping the present. Jordan enters a world that already has its kings, and he arrives in the Chicago Bulls, an organization without identity, without a winning culture, without a clear direction, a team not accustomed to winning, and certainly not to being built around a single figure. The draft itself becomes a quiet psychological breaking point. to picks before him, to teams that didn't want him. For most players, this would be a footnote. For Jordan, it becomes a personal entry etched into memory. He doesn't preserve successes, he stores grievances. Every oversight, every underestimation, every moment of doubt. These moments don't become the past for him, they become fuel, and the NBA feels it immediately. Jordan's arrival is brutal, not refined, not diplomatic, brutal. He plays with the urgency of someone who feels the world owes him respect. Every drive to the basket feels like an accusation, every dunk like a scream. He doesn't score to entertain, he scores to dominate, and the league is stunned. It didn't expect this blend of athleticism, aggression, and psychological relentlessness. Jordan fears no one, not veterans, not physical contact, not failure, but the Chicago Bulls keep losing, and here, a deep internal fracture opens up. Jordan is individually unstoppable, yet collectively powerless. They lose in the playoffs often quickly, often without a real chance. And Jordan doesn't carry this as a sporting reality. He carries it as a personal failure. In his world, there is no we. There's only me. If the team loses, it means he wasn't good enough. And his solution is always the same. Push harder, shoot more, take on more responsibility. It's a spiral that elevates him to superstar status, but also traps him in the role of the lone warrior. Then comes the injury, a broken foot in his second season, a long absence, silence, and for the first time in his life, not control, but waiting. For someone like Jordan, this is psychological hell. He can't compete, he can't respond, he can't prove his worth through performance. And it's precisely then that we see how completely his identity is tied to the game. Basketball isn't his job, it's his language, his mode of existence. When he can't play, he feels erased. Upon returning, he's confronted with something he may hate even more than losing: limitation. Management wants to protect his health, to restrict his minutes. Jordan sees this as an attack on his very essence. He refuses. He resists. He plays through pain, through risk, through reason. Not because he's reckless, but because in his value system, refusing the fight is worse than defeat. He would rather fall on the court than sit on the bench. And then come the Detroit Pistons, not as a team, but as a concept. The Pistons aren't just opponents, they are Jordan's antithesis. They play hard, physical, without sentiment. They are not intimidated by his name or his performances. On the contrary, they target him directly. The Jordan roles aren't just a tactical plan, they're psychological warfare. Constant contact, constant pressure, a constant reminder that talent is not untouchable. Jordan puts up monstrous numbers, but loses the series, and that is something entirely new for him. For the first time in his career, he discovers that he can do everything right and still it isn't enough. Detroit hurts him physically, but destroys him even more psychologically because they take away his control. They strip him of the illusion that individual greatness automatically equals victory. This period is crucial precisely because Jordan is forced, for the first time, to face a choice he's postponed his entire life. Either remain who he has always been, an absolute solitary figure who rejects compromise, or change, not in his game, but in his mind. To admit that dominance can take different forms, that sometimes the greatest strength is the ability to step back so the entire team can win. And even if he doesn't admit it publicly at the time, it's here that a new Michael Jordan begins to take shape in his mind. Not immediately, not quickly, but inevitably, because he cannot accept a ceiling, and the Detroit Pistons have just become his highest one. Michael Jordan's first three-peat is not a triumphant march through history. It's a long, exhausting campaign in which victory gradually stops equaling joy. When the Bulls win their first title in 1991, Jordan finally touches the peak he had imagined all his life as the final destination. But reality is different. The summit isn't a place where you rest. It's a place where there's nowhere left to hide. Everyone sees you, everyone watches you, everyone wants to pull you down. The second title doesn't arrive as a dream, but as an obligation. Jordan no longer plays with the feeling of we can do this. He plays with the feeling of we must not fail. And that difference is enormous, psychologically crushing. Every regular season game becomes a test of focus. Every misstep is inflated into a global story. The media no longer searches for greatness, they search for weakness, and Jordan is allergic to that. Every criticism stings. Every hint of doubt awakens old demons from childhood, from rejection, from Detroit, The third title in 1993 is no longer about growth. It's about survival. Jordan is physically and mentally exhausted. He trains harder than anyone else, but no longer feels inner hunger. He feels the pressure to be perfect, to be a symbol, to be the best version of himself without interruption. And that's a role that cannot be played indefinitely. Every champion has moments of doubt. The difference is that Jordan does not allow his doubt to show, and so he buries it inside. The death of his father arrives as the absolute collapse of this internal structure, not as an emotional explosion, but as silence. Jordan loses the man who was his quiet compass, not a mentor in basketball, but in life. His father was the person Jordan wanted to prove that all of this had meaning. Without him, the entire system of motivation falls apart, and when the engine breaks, you can't keep going on momentum alone. Baseball is not an escape from basketball. It's an escape from the pressure of being Michael Jordan. In baseball, he isn't a legend. He's a rookie. He's ordinary. He can fail and no one holds it against him. For the first time in years, he isn't the center of the world. And even though he struggles athletically, he breathes again as a human being. But Jordan never knew how to exist where he wasn't the best. And that inner fire, even suppressed, never goes out. The return in 1995 isn't heroic. It's awkward. The body isn't ready. The mind is still searching for rhythm. The series against Orlando brings him brutally back to reality. It shows him that legend alone is no longer enough, that the past doesn't win games. And this defeat is crucial because it reactivates what always defined Jordan, the rejection of limits. The decision to step away from the NBA appears incomprehensible from the outside. Jordan is at the peak of his powers. He has just completed his first three-peat. He is a global icon. But inside, he is exhausted not physically, but mentally. Every game has turned into an obligation. Every success into an expectation of the next one. At basketball, the thing that defined him his entire life becomes a closed circle with no visible way out. Baseball is not a random choice. It is a symbolic return to his father. James Jordan always dreamed that his son would play baseball, and that is precisely why Michael chooses this path. Not because he believes he will become a star, but because he wants to feel the process again, the beginning, the uncertainty, the possibility of failure, without the judgment of the entire world. In baseball, he is not Michael Jordan. He is just another player in the system, and that is liberating. His baseball chapter is not successful in the traditional sense. Statistically, he falls behind. Technically, he is behind. Every day, he has to fight limits he never had in basketball. But that is exactly where its meaning lies. Jordan learns again how to be imperfect. He gets back up as a rookie. He accepts criticism again. And for the first time in years, he experiences something the NBA no longer gave him: silence after practice, ordinariness, routine without spotlights. But competitiveness doesn't disappear. It only sleeps. And when he returns to NBA arenas in 1995, it's a comeback without grandeur. No press conference, no explanations. Just a simple message: I'm back. 3 words that don't mean the return of a legend. They mean the return of a man who has found his reason again. Jordan's comeback is not triumphant. It's raw. The body isn't in ideal condition. The rhythm is gone. The series against Orlando shows that the past alone doesn't win anything. And this defeat is crucial because Jordan once again feels a familiar sensation, the doubt of others, and with it returns the fire that always defined him. This time, however, he isn't fighting to prove something to someone. He's fighting to close the circle, to be sure his story didn't end in escape, but in return, that he left when he had to and came back when he was ready. And this chapter gives his entire legacy depth. It shows that Jordan wasn't just a machine built to win. He was a man who had to get lost in order to find his direction again. The second three-peat isn't about dominance. It's about control of details. Jordan is older, slower, more battered. Every game is a compromise between pain and performance. He no longer relies on athletic superiority. He relies on reading the game, on rhythm, on moments. He becomes a master of time. He knows when to speed up. He knows when to slow down. He knows when to attack. And most importantly, he knows when to strike in a way that hurts the most. But the atmosphere within the team is toxic. Constant tension, conflict, a sense that this is the final chapter. Phil Jackson knows it. Jordan knows it. Everyone knows it. And that's exactly why the 1997-98 season is so heavy. It's not a chase for a title. It's a fight to close the story. Jordan knows that if it doesn't work, his entire legacy will remain open and finished. The finals against Utah are not a celebration of basketball. They are a war of nerves. Jordan is exhausted, dehydrated, in pain, but still mentally one step ahead. Every movement has meaning. Every dribble is a decision, and then comes the final minute, the final possession, the final isolation. The last shot is not just a basketball moment. It is a concentrated life story. All the doubts, all the grievances, all the sacrifices, all the loneliness. Jordan takes the ball because his entire life he believed in one thing. That responsibility is the price of greatness. He doesn't run. He doesn't hide. He doesn't look for alternatives. He creates space. He stops. He shoots. The ball drops through the net, and in that moment time stops. Not because it was a beautiful shot, but because the story closed exactly where it was meant to. Jordan doesn't end as a shadow. He doesn't end as someone who was forced out. He ends as the author of the final sentence. And that is precisely what separates Michael Jordan from all other greats. Not how much he won, but how and when he left. He left at a moment when he no longer had anything to prove, when he no longer had to fight, when he could finally be at peace. And maybe that's why his name still doesn't mean just sporting greatness. It represents a perfect narrative arc. And that's not something you can train. That's something you can only live. When Michael Jordan truly leaves after the last shot, the world feels it has witnessed a perfect ending. Not a sporting one, but a narrative one. A story with a clear arc, a peak, and a final punctuation mark. The hero decides, leaves at the top, and remains forever young in memory. But that feeling belongs to the fans, not to him. For Jordan, an ending was never a state of calm. It was only a pause between competitions. And when competition disappeared, there was an emptiness he couldn't fill with anything other than a return to the arena. Jordan lived his entire life in an extreme mode. A day only had meaning if there was something in it. He could win, without games, without pressure, without the responsibility of the final shot. The world slowed down too much, and that began to destroy him more than playoff fatigue ever did. Silence, routine, the knowledge that there was no one left he had to prove he was the best to. For many athletes, that state is a dream. For Jordan, it was a threat to his identity. His return with the Washington Wizards is therefore not the comeback of a legend chasing one last spotlight. It's the return of a man who refuses to accept that his story is over while he still feels alive. Jordan comes back to the league without illusions. He knows he will no longer dominate physically. He knows the body has limits, but he also knows that his mind, his instincts, and his inner compass are still intact, and that is enough for him to step back into the fight with the Wizards. Jordan is no longer playing for a title. He's playing for truth, for discovering who he is without the protective layers of the Bulls dynasty, without Phil Jackson, without a system built around him, without the certainty that the team will automatically respond to his intensity. And that's exactly why these years are so important for understanding his personality. They show a Jordan who is willing to accept defeat, but not passivity, who would rather risk damaging the myth than live safely in the past. Every Wizards game is physically demanding. Recovery takes longer. Pain is constant. But Jordan plays with a calm he never had before. He no longer needs to shout. He no longer needs to humiliate teammates to wake them up. He's still tough, still demanding, but his competitiveness has a different color now. It's no longer driven by fear of losing. It's driven by the need not to betray himself. His final NBA game doesn't bring an iconic moment. No game-winning shot. No symbolic full stop, and that's precisely why it's so powerful. Jordan leaves the court for the last time without drama, without pathos, and this time, he knows he won't return. Not because he can't, but because he doesn't have to. For the first time in his life, he feels that the competition has been closed from within, not from the outside. After his career, Michael Jordan doesn't become a calm sage, nor does he become a universal role model. He remains a complex, sometimes uncomfortable figure. As an owner, executive, and public personality, he makes mistakes. He is stubborn, demanding, often cold, but that isn't a failure of character, it's consistency of personality. Jordan was never built for compromise, not on the court and not off it. His Hall of Fame speech isn't sentimental. It isn't reconciliatory. It's sharp, honest, full of old grudges. And that perfectly captures who Michael Jordan was, a man who never stopped looking back at moments when people doubted him, not because they hurt him, but because they created him. The debate over the greatest player of all time can go on forever. Eras change, rules change, athleticism evolves, but Jordan's true legacy doesn't lie in points, titles, or awards. It lies in the mental standard he set, in the ability to accept pressure and turn it into a tool, in the willingness to carry responsibility when others hide, in the understanding that greatness isn't comfortable or friendly, but demands sacrifices not everyone is willing to accept. Michael Jordan wasn't a hero you choose as a friend. He wasn't a leader who hugged everyone. He was a leader who forced you to become better or leave. And that's why his name still means more than just sporting success. It represents the measure of the decisive moment. It represents a man who was willing to pay the price so that, in the final second, the ball would end up in his hands. And maybe that's why his story never truly ends. Not because it was perfect, but because it was completely true to his nature. And that is something time cannot wear away.